Hello, chocolate people, and welcome to the Chocolate Life. This is your host, Mr. Chocolate speaking, coming to you live from the Cocoverse. And once again, we have our amazing, wise resident co-host with us, Coach K. How you doing?
You're funny, but I'm doing well. It's been a wonderful week. Uh, so we're back. Last week we were out just doing family stuff in different areas of the country.
Yeah,
For all of you guys who had a happy Mother's Day, we say Happy Mother's Day again. We tried to do the broadcast, but wasn't able to do it. But we're here. We're here and um, trying to do some things just a little bit, just to stretch the consciousness a little bit more. And Mr. Chocolate often say, uh, like, subscribe, and all of that other good stuff, and put your comment, send them an email. I'm going to start doing that also because I would like to know what you guys think and how is it helping you. Mainly because the world is not going to get any better. So we have to just start preparing ourselves to help ourselves. We are the, how about we're the God we're looking for? Now, that may be a little uh, controversial to certain people who are very traditional and very religious, but we are. And if we're not, and we want to do a broadcast about that one day. The question is, if you're not the God you're looking for, then why? So, but with that being said, we've passed the 200 mark, and I say yay to all of you guys who tune in. And we really do thank you for not only tuning in, but it is my hope that eventually one day the comments come in to show us how much this is this conversation that we have every week is helping you guys to develop your own, not only just a platform, but help develop your community wherever you are in this world. Because um, we need to help each other. And I may sound a little bit more thoughtful or reserved tonight. That's because I'm intentional to try to stay focused on what we're doing tonight, which is one of our first case studies. And I think case studies are necessary. Reason being, because the world we live in, we have been inundated with propaganda and inundated with indoctrination. So much so that anytime we hear a thought or a concept that we haven't heard before, it kind of shake our core, and we go into a hole as a people. And as a people, we're going to be shocked by a lot of things that our community have not been teaching us in a long time. And that's what this case study is about. This case study, I'm going to start first. And what we're going to do is just give you guys just some background. We're going to talk about um, several people. I'm going to talk about a group, and then Mr. Chocolate going to talk about a group, and then what we're going to do is just going to come back and we're going to do some critiquing. But first, we're going to do some comparative analysis because we need to know the voices that the the public white spaces are putting before us and calling them our leaders or our voices, simply because these people have melanin in their skin. And many of these people have never try to do anything to help us. So I'm going to give us some people who've helped us. And if you guys have heard of these people, yay to you guys. If you have not, then I would recommend that you do a deep dive. Do a deep dive for yourself. Don't just take, like I often say, just don't take the information that we give you. Uh, do some research for yourself, because the more we know and the more we can do comparative analysis for ourselves, we can help our young people. And I am so concerned about our young people. Our young people are less afraid than people were 50 or 75 years ago. They're less concerned about trying to fit into a certain mold. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic that's going to unfold in the years to come, because we're looking how the earth has changed, the world has changed, the United States has changed, and it's for us it's changing for the better, because now we have an opportunity, because of all of the technology, we have the opportunity to access information faster. That can be very helpful, because it's not taking 30 and 40 years to learn some of the things that they were just always giving us a snow job. And they've always, and when I say they, I'm talking about the structure that we live under, the regime of white supremacy, the regime that we call the education system, the regime we call religion, the regime we call the political structure. All of those, since they came over here and set this regime up, has been geared toward Eurocentric ideas, thoughts, concept, and the way that we should live. And I'm ready for us to push back, but I want us to learn how to push back with information to back it up. Um, as I said, we're going to do a comparative analysis. And the first person I want to start with is Maria Stewart. I'm going to talk about, first of all, I'm going to give you guys the city state that these individuals are from. I will tell you about their activism, what they're known for, a few things that you may not have known, and why Black people need to know these particular women. And we're only going to talk about women. That's what we would have done last week, lined up with the Mother's Day thing, but we didn't have the opportunity. So we still going to bring it to you, because it's still just as important. These people are still our elders that I'm going to talk about. And uh, Mr. Chaka is going to talk about these pseudo women of color. We're not, I will,
Man,
I will say this. I said it last week in a religious service. Uh, I said, I have learned how to embrace Black, and that's KEM Black, from the chemical component that come out of Kemet. I'm not talking about BLACK Black from the Webster Dictionary. Total two different concepts, and you guys can look that up and actually either embrace it or you can throw it away. But that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being Black, being embracing the chemical component that made me who I am as an Indigenous woman. And when I say Indigenous, I mean just that, the melanin that makes us Indigenous. So the first person, as I state, I'm going to talk about Maria Stewart. Maria Stewart, you may not be aware, she was the first politician, first melanin politician in the United States, born in 1803. Remember, 1803 is just a little bit after what they call the Declaration of Independence, and all of when the Constitution was signed and ratified in 1776 and all this stuff. So we're looking at somebody who was born in 1803, and according to reports, now I'm just going to give you a little bit of the reports. It says she lost both of her parents at age 5, and as I said, I will come back and do some comments later. She was born. She lost her parents at 5, and she worked in service 10 years, from age 5 to age 15. And when I say service, she worked for a white clergy couple at that time. After she lost her parents, And at age 16, she decided to branch out on her own. And this woman became, as I stated, one of the first voices of the community. And when I say the community, I'm talking about the political community right now. So she was the first politician, female. That includes black or white. That's who Maria Stewart was. Maria Maria Stewart was born Maria Miller. She got married in 1926 after she branched out and started supporting herself because after her parents died, she had other siblings. There is no recording of this. But she married James Stewart, who had been a veteran. And they married in 1826, which is to say, if he's a veteran, he's a veteran of the War of 1812. And as I stated, I'll come back and bring other pieces of information so we can help you guys to see some things. The camaraderie that these women that I'm going to bring share, and then we will do the analysis of the other women after I finish. And in 1929, her beginning that Eurocentric idea has been very forceful, very determined to deter us from having political wealth and political autonomy for ourselves. Uh, One thing Maria started doing after her husband died, she started doing public speaking. So in 1931, one of her first publications, okay, remember, this is a person who had limited education. So at 23, she got married. She, by 30, she's a widow, okay? But she has self-expressed publication. She talked about uh, American organizing against slavery in the South to resist the racist restrictions in the North. So right there we can see that the North was no different than the South. She also called for Black economic progress and women's rights. Okay, she further advocated to establish strong self-sufficient education and economic institution within the Black community. This is Maria Stewart, okay, a 30-year-old. So mind you, pay attention to this. Her first engagement, she spoke April 28 in 1832. Before the writing says African American, but I'm going to be intentional on not saying that because even back then that was not the word that was used, and even now most of us, some of us, anyways, don't use that language. I don't use it, so I'm going to tell you why I don't, because I'm not African American. My ancestry is from here, like Maria Stewart was from here. Although she's described as quote unquote an African American woman. As I stated, I'll talk about that later. But she did something that women did not do. So recognize her boldness. She spoke in public, which was a violation even at that time and frowned upon by the elites who was establishing what they call the United States. And later on in 1832, she spoke again in September. I mean, she's speaking often. She spoke in April. Now she's speaking again in September. This time, speaking to an audience of both men and women at Franklin Hall, that is in Connecticut. And she made the assertion that free Black people were hardly better off than those in slavery. And if you would, you can go and read the rest of what she meant when she said that, because it wasn't to say that slavery was wonderful for people. As a matter of fact, she is actually talking about how free people was treated just as bad. So, uh, if nothing else, that is the framework that she's talking about. In February in 1833, she spoke again, and now she's still talking about the rights of, as she called it, African rights and liberty. Because if you have been taught that you come from Africa, then you're going to use the language. She used that language then the same way we do now. We'll call ourselves, some of us will call ourselves African Americans and use African American, we're fighting for this. We're fighting for indigenous rights. And I don't care if it's in America, I don't care if it's on the continent, I don't care if it's in Asia. If we start talking about indigenous rights, and we are the indigenous people of melanin descent, okay? However you want to frame it, but we still talking about black people, okay? And she defends in
Mm-hmm.
this speech, she again defend her right to speak in public. So this woman is not letting anybody deter her from having her own voice. Uh, in 1852, after this lady have, she is known for uh, writing essays. She was an essayist, the first politician. She was an abolitionist, and she was what black women call womanists. Okay, not a feminist. A feminist is a term that white women use. In all of this language, they want to blend it together when it suits their narrative. And you never hear the that language time when black people were trying to establish their voices. Now, we're talking about a lady who taught herself, became an essayist, became a lecturer, became an abolitionist, became a women's rights advocate. Okay, so I hope we don't forget those things when I come back and talk about later, because in 1861 she moved to Washington D.C. And again, okay, it said again because this lady took her pension after she got a pension 45 years later that they denied her from her husband's benefit. She started a school, okay, and then that was in 1852 when she started her first school. But in 1861, she moved to Washington, D.C., and she started another school. But that is as much as I want to talk about her because I want to make sure that we stay within our framework and our time span so we both can share this information and then come back after we share the people we're talking about. And then we can bounce questions off of each other. And if you guys want, you can put information in the chat. Second person I want to talk about is Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells was an indigenous woman from Holly Spring, Mississippi. I'm not sure if I said uh, um, Maria Stewart, Maria Miller Stewart was born in Hartford, Connecticut. Okay, so we've gone from the north, talking about an advocate. Now we're coming to the south. Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells was born in 1862. 1862 uh, is a pivotal moment because in some parts of the United States at that point, people were still enslaved. But Ida B. Wells was not enslaved at that point. She was born in slavery, but in 1860, and sometime after that point, she was not. So it's interesting how they write these narratives about people, but they don't give you the whole story. Ida B. Wells was the eldest of her parents, James and Lizzie Well. She was an advocate, a civil rights advocate, a journalist, a womanist. Okay, her parents were a part; they were an active part. And remember, we're talking 1800. They were active. They were active members of the Republican Party during Reconstruction. It was Mr. Wells, Ida B. Wells's father, who helped start Rush College, uh, uh, being a part of the Freedmen's Aid Society, and which was affiliated with the United Methodist Church. Russ College was one of the original HBCUs founded in 1869, and it is still in operation right now. So we need to know about Ida B. Wells because these women did things that we need to see more women do. They had a love for the community. So if you notice, uh, we got the first politician who's starting a school, who's actually giving benefits, who love us, okay? And we see the same thing with Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells lost her parents uh, during the scarlet fever, I mean, the yellow fever epidemic, okay? She lost both of them, and then she took on the responsibility of taking care of her siblings. She was only 16 at that time, and she dropped out of Russ College. Okay, think about it. She is going to Russ College at age 16, and she dropped out to take care of her siblings because really these schools were not called the universities that they are now. But we're gonna talk about that later. She took care of her siblings when the yellow fever outbreak. However, this is how shrewd she was. She convinced a nearby school administrator that she was 18, and that's how she landed her first job as a teacher to take care of her siblings. Okay? In 1882, Ida B. Wells and her siblings moved to Memphis to live with live with an aunt. Her brother found work as a as in carpentry as an apprentice, and she went on to further her education at Fisk University, Nashville. Now, part of her activism started in May in 1884. It started when she was going to Nashville on the train from Memphis, and she got into altercation with the train crew. Okay, think about this. We're talking about a young woman who is not afraid to challenge the status and the white supremacy uh, regime back in the 1800s. Okay, she had bought a ticket. This is how the altercation started. This young woman bought a ticket, first class ticket on the train, and they asked her to go to the back, and she said no. I mean, emphatically no. And she got into an altercation where they they forced her to the back and actually they put her off the train, and she sued the railroad and she won. Another incident where white supremacy and the courts were making sure we don't get our just due. She won the case, which was $500 at that time. However, the Supreme Court of Tennessee overturned it. Okay? So even if we sue, like even right now, you still got to go against these judges who have no love for us. They never have, and we're seeing the behavior pattern. Ida B. Wells started her writing career that incident. And one of the first things she started talking about was the racism that exists in public spaces. She addressed race and politics in the South. So we see, and that's why I say letting people say that Black women have not tried to do certain things, it's all been lies. We need to go back and find our own history, and we need to learn how to tell our own narratives. Okay, in 1882, she turned her attention to the anti-lynching. Okay, remember now she's already in addressing racism. Now she's turning to anti-lynching, and she did so because she has a heart for people. And one of her friends and two of his business associates. Okay, this is one woman doing this, and she furthered her activism by 1885 after she married Ferdinand Burnett, because Memphis racism, Ku Klux Klan threatened her life. So she got out of town. Okay, but she brought her issue of anti-racism before the White House in 1898 to the president at that time, who was McKinney. Okay, so as you can see, these women are doing what they can to help the community. They're not just doing selfish thing trying to see how much their ego can grow. They're helping the whole community. There's a whole series of books that Ida B. Wells wrote, and I just put that in there. That's for free. After the attack of Black people in Springfield, Illinois, and yes, there was a riot. There was a another uh, Greenwood that happened in Springfield, Illinois. That's when she took action in 1909 when she attended a conference which the organization was forming what we now call the NAACP. But she cut ties with them because they had no really uh, they had no goals or initiative to what they wanted to do. So she wasn't really with them even from the beginning. She saw through what they had just window dressing, pretending they were helping us, but really has never helped us. They got white capital, and that's what they did. They became, think of the name, the National Association of Colored People, but white people is running it. How does that even make sense? Okay, let me keep going. She founded the Alpha Suffrage Club in Chicago in 1913. She had to leave Memphis, so as soon as she got Chicago, she found community and she started working. So that's as much as I want to give about Ida B. Wells, because what I'm trying to do is show you there is a pattern of how our elders, our scholars, our activists have not only been males, but they've been females. And the next person I want to bring to your attention is Mary McLeod Bethune. Mary McLeod Bethune was born in Mayville, Sumner County, which is in South Carolina, and that's in 1875. She was one of 15 children of her parents, not a single mother, of her parents. And she had a special uh, educational background because in her education at that time, remember this is in Reconstruction. Her education consists of her learning how to be a foreign missionary, although she never went off the soil to do what they call foreign missionary. And at that time, it was India or going to the continent to really indoctrinate Black people. That's really what the missionaries have always done. And they've always used people who look like us to help indoctrinate us. Okay, and I'm gonna speed up because I'm running a little bit behind how I actually wanted this to go. She was known for she established a missionary school in Florida, 50 miles south of Jacksonville. Later on, she moved to Daytona, where she started a literary and industrial training institute for Negro girls, and that was in 1904. But in 1923, after and she married Albertus Bethune in 1898, and in 1923, the two schools merged. Okay, the, he had Cookman and Jay Bethune. Okay, but now you got the all male school and the all the training institute that was in Daytona, and they formed to become uh, Bethune Cookman Institute.
College.
And
Oh, the
and she
Institute.
well, it was institute at that time, and she was elected to in 1924 to become the president of the Association of Colored Women. Remember, this is the same organization that uh, Ida B. Wells belonged to. So you see how these women are working together to make things happen for the community. In 1931, Bethune Cookman College became uh, a secondary, excuse me, secondary school to get accreditation in the southern part of the United States. And she became the first Black president of a school, which is the school she founded. Uh, and that's as much as I want to talk about her. As you can see the dynamics. These women are doing work. They're doing real work. And we're talking about women back in the 1800s and now in the early 1900s. Next person I want to bring to your attention is Dorothy Heights. Dorothy Heights was an activist, an administrator, and an educator. Dorothy Heights was born in 1912 to James and Fanny Heights. James was a building contractor. His wife Fanny was a nurse. Their family moved from Pens- uh, moved to Rankins, Pennsylvania, and when she was 4 years old. As a child, she was a severe asthmatic, and she was not expected to live past 16. But Dorothy Heights received a scholarship for her auditory skills to attend Barnard College. Barnard College is the female college that sits on Columbia University campus. However, because they had reached their maximum two black people limit, she could not go. As it states in the reading, it says they had reached their quota, so she could not go to Barnard College. Okay, but she did her postgraduate work at Columbia and also at NYU in social work. Her career as a caseworker led her to learn the value of social justice for her client and for the community. She was known for her efforts on the behalf of racial equality. We're seeing, like I said, we're seeing a pattern with these women. They're trying to help our community, and they're not taking no. And they don't have to do all of this stuff. They don't have to pander. And that's the point I want us to see. They don't have to pander. They did what they were excellent at. And they started schools, they did activism, they met with these leaders, and that includes the president. Because Dorothy Heights counseled Eleanor Roosevelt. Okay, um, she created what was called Wednesday in Mississippi, which brought together women of all ethnicities to create open dialogue and which came in the peak of the civil rights movement. So we're talking about the work that she did in the 60s. In the 60s, she was the only woman to engage in the United Civil Rights Leadership Organization, along with MLK, uh, A. Randolph, all of those guys. Remember, we still talked about organizations that think men are supposed to run, although remember, politics started with a woman. But most of these men in the 60s didn't know anything about Maria Stewart. I want you to hold tight to it. In 1986, Dorothy Heights organized the first uh, Black family reunion designed to reinforce and strengthen the traditional Black family. Now, like I said, I'm running a little bit behind how I wanted this to go, which is to give you enough information in this time frame in 30 minutes. So Mr. Chocolate can have his 30 minutes. Um, the last person I want to talk about is Zora Neale Hurston. Zora Neale Hurston. And if you
Ooh.
notice, I'm giving you the when these women were born, and I'm advancing up into years, because Zora Neale Hurston was born in 1891 in Evansville, uh, Florida. Okay, She- this town was founded by Black people. Okay, her father was a minister. He also served 3 terms as the mayor. Zora Neale Hurston, and I'm going to cut this part short because I want to make sure that he gets to what he needs to talk about. Uh, you can actually Google some of this information and see that Zora Neale became an anthropologist. She studied the history of the dialect of the people in Jacksonville, and she made it her purpose in life to go to school, learn how to learn the voices and categorize. I mean, yeah, categorize the stories of the people in literature. She was a storyteller, she was a story writer. This is what we are up against when we see some of the people that he's about to bring. All of these women love the community and they dedicated their lives to empowering the community. And that's what I want us to learn. And this is the first part. Now, if he can get through his in the time of, before we run out, then we will go back and just do a few uh, highlights, because I can think of some highlights I want to share about uh, Maria Stewart and Ida B. Wells. But go ahead. Mr. Chocolate.
All right. The first person I will be talking about is, yes. Hello?
I'm here.
Can you hear
Hello?
me?
I can.
Hello?
I'm still here.
Hello? Oh, okay. Um, we're gonna be talking about.
I'm still here.
Okay. Oh,
But just as
I
long
hear
as
you.
the audience can hear you, go ahead.
All right. The first person we'll be talking about is Kamala Harris. She was born.
Sound like he's having mic problems.
I think there's a delay.
Oh, well, if you just go on and give the information, that I mean, they just
Can you?
need to
Is there
hear
a
what.
delay from? Is there a delay coming from me?
Uh, I just I'm not really hearing you. I mean, I hear you. You say Kamala Harris, and I didn't hear anything else, so I didn't know if your mic was working.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Kamala Harris was born in Oakland, California, to a Jamaican father and an Indian mother. Um, she is known for being the first black female. I'm sorry, first person of color and Asian female vice president. Um, as far as her activism in the community and what she's done for us, um, really can't say there's anything of record, but she's passed a few bills in California that actually did more harm than good to our community. Um, uh, what is um, what is she known for? Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. What? Okay. What are some things that we don't know about her? Well, she's been a lot. She's been involved in a lot of shady stuff that kind of uh it just seems like a lot of her moves have kind of quote unquote elevated her career. She was with a man by the name of Willie Brown, who just happened to be the mayor of the city of San Francisco. And, you know, there's been some sources that said he was married. There were some sources saying he was separated from his wife at the time he and Kamala were involved. But that's neither here nor there. But it's just the fact that it happened. Um, Also, um, we okay, and the most important question is, why do we as black people need to know this person? This person has been identified as one of us by people who are not us. But because she is of a certain tone, you know, most people in general just automatically assume her to be one of us, even though her experience is not like ours. And she doesn't really like us, but she has benefited off of us. Um, she went to school. Another example, she went to school in Canada. You know, during her during her elementary school years and and then I think her family moved to California like later on, and then she ended up going to a HBCU called Howard in Washington D.C. And and then because of that, everybody just automatically assumed she is one of us. But by her career and what she says involving putting litigation and laws to help us, she's she's proving otherwise that she is not one of us. Now, this next person we're going to talk about is Ketanji Brown Jackson. Now, she was born in Washington, D.C. However, everybody keeps talking about her growing up in Florida, and doing this and doing that. We don't really know what happened in between. We don't really know about her in that space per se. Um, she is now. I really don't see any. I really didn't find anything as far as activism for us, as a black community, with her. Um, but it just seems like she was just going to school and working her way up the ladder in her field. And uh, one thing that a lot of people don't know about her is that a black worker sued their employer and she ruled in favor of the company. Though I very vaguely remember that particular case because I had that particular company had a small office in Nashville, and my friend's dad worked for the company at the time, and that was kind of something being talked about in that office amongst the black coworkers at the time. Um, and okay, where is it? Oh, why do we need to know about this person? Well, one, just because she's on the Supreme Court doesn't mean she's going to help us. We have to watch her. We really do. Yes, we have to watch her. Um, oh yeah, that company was Lockheed Martin. I almost said McDonald. I don't know why, but I almost said McDonnell Douglas. Thank you. And I always get those two mixed up for some crazy odd reason. They're both, aeronaut. They're both companies that work in aeronautics and airspace. Yeah, but it was Lockheed Martin. Um, yes, and we pretty much have to watch out for those two people for the same reason. You know, they're not really in place to help us. They're figures to represent us, even though we did not ask for them. They're being planted in front of us, and we have to just be cognizant and be vigilant of those people's actions. Now, this next young lady, her name is Joyanne Reed, born in Brooklyn, New York. However, she might look like one of us, but she wasn't raised like one of us. Her father is Congolese and her mother is Guyanese. So you have South American and African culture involved. However, even though she was born in America, that's what she's made of. Um, the only two things of note that she has been an activist for was, the history of Black American civil rights and women's rights. Most importantly, the right for Black women to wear their natural hair in the workplace. That was one of her main things that she was championing for back in 2020. And it was due to the military. Um, the military is always going through changes, and around it was 2020. I would say actually 2019 was one of the first times where it actually came out where uh, black female soldiers were going to be penalized, and they had to be relegated to certain hairstyles. And so one of the longest uh, tenured uh, pundits or talking heads on the MSNBC network. Um, she has um, what a lot of people don't know about her, even though she looks like one of us. She has spoken very, very controversially and negatively in certain things in our black culture when she is not necessarily of our culture. She was actually raised in Denver, Colorado, and and then on top of that, she was upper middle class. A lot of black people aren't in that space in Denver, Colorado. Very few, if any. If you are upper middle class in Denver, Colorado, your parents are probably uh, uh, school board superintendents, principals, bank presidents, or something like that, which doesn't happen very often. They're professional athletes or something up there. But in that space, uh, black people like us don't have aren't in those spaces like that. But she's spoken very, very nasty about our culture and our community. And we must watch her as well because of the things that she says, the things that she reports on. Sometimes, if you really have to pay attention to what she is saying because she's going to bring in points or bring up things that she doesn't necessarily relate to, but she's going to put her 10 cents in as if it is valid and basically being used as a talking representative for us. You know, that MSNBC has her as our face in that network. So we have to pay attention we got to pay attention to what she's putting down to us. We gotta listen to her and watch her. Now, this next young lady has been in the news a lot recently. Her name is Noah Faye. She was born in Boston, Massachusetts, and her activism is not really for us. However, she's she has been an advocate or an activist for colored Jews, if you will, in her words. She is the president of the colored Jew. Hold up, colored Jewish. The Colored Jewish Council of uh, Bernard College on the campus of Columbia University. Um, but what she's known for is speaking out for anti-Semitism. Now, a very wise woman would come back at her and be like, which anti-Semitism are you speaking of? That is what this wise woman would say to her if they were in conversation. But I digress. Um, and the one thing that everybody is typically looking for with this young lady is that she's claiming to be African American, Native American, and Jewish all in the same body, and then championing for protection for against anti-Semitism. And we have to watch her because she kind of has this very, very, just by watching her interviews, it's almost like she has this look like well, to me, I feel like she can't be trusted. She just has this look like she's just trying to get over something. And the fact that they're just throwing her out there in front of all these eyes for the whole world to see, it looks, you got this colored skinned young lady talking about we got to do something about this anti Semitism. But I don't think she understands what the definition of anti Semitism really is. That's just me, in my opinion. But we have to watch her because she's obviously been planted in front of us to take eyes away from what is really going on. Because when she's speaking, people just happen to be paying attention. But you know, we have to stay focused, and we can't be focused on her. But we got to call her out on what she's doing. That's what has to happen. Now, this last young lady, Miss Amanda Gorman. Miss Amanda Gorman is from Los Angeles, California. Went to USC. And what activism has she been a part of? Well, she's actually been way more productive than her older counterparts. Black women's rights, black feminism, speaking out on oppression, race. And she's also speaking out. She's also been very, very active against the marginalization of the African diaspora. Yeah. What is she known for? In 2014, she was the first young poet laureate selected by Jill Biden. She was the first black one. And it was, and what a lot of people don't know about her is that a lot there was, and the other thing you have to sit and think about it. Jill Biden handpicked this young lady. And another thing I would actually sit and think about: what does Jill Biden know about poetry? What does she know about that art? Because poets come in many, many, many different forms. Some poets hit hard on certain subjects. Some poets hit hard on other subjects. But why was she picked? Why is she put in front of us? And I think it had something to do with trying to bring more black people to Joe's voting, to to Robinette's voting base. She was used as a tool. I don't think she understands that, but yes, she's being used as a tool. Now, um, being a poet myself and was on the poetry circuit for a little while in the, between the states of Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas, came around a lot of poets. Even came around some of the big poets like Saul Williams and Shehan Van Cleef and Sonia Sanchez and Nikki Giovanni at the Big Poetry Jam in Dallas. There are poets that are out there that are way more talented, that are more impactful culturally than Amanda Gordon. The poems that I have heard of hers and read of hers, they're very, very quote unquote whitewashed, if I can use that word, because her poetry really doesn't. That I may be wrong. I would have to, if she has a book out, I would have to delve into the book and read the whole book. But I've read poetry by Nikki Giovanni, by Maya Angelou, by Zora Neale Hurston. I've read poems by Jessica Care Moore, who's a younger black poet. And it's almost like they're putting people in front of us for us to gravitate to. Not even, it's almost like they know we're not going to dive deeper into them. They're trying to catch us with surface stuff, if that makes sense. And that was the last one.
Thank you, sir. Um, and that's a good observation for us to actually kind of end on. That you guys, if you would take each one of these individuals and look at them compared to the first group, there is no doubt that's a behavior pattern. You can see it throughout their lives. They work for the community. They did everything they could to empower us, and that's what we need to be about. But we got to dig through all of the uh, the, the
Minutia.
pseudo representation that is being put before us. As many of the people in the black YouTube streets would say, they're not from the grassroots, they're not from the soil. You have a vice president who will gladly accept the title of being Asian African American, and she is neither. She is, I mean, She'll let people call her African American. Correction. And she's Asian. She's an Asian and she's a Jamaican. That is not our experience. Now, if she want to talk about her experience of being an Asian, growing up as an immigrant, that's her. That's what she need to talk about. That's what Joy Reid need to talk about. They're not from the soil, so they can't take our story, nor can they be our representation, regardless of how many white people put them up. This is what we have to push back on. We have to learn our own history so we can learn to tell our own story. That young lady that he talked about, Nola, whatever her name is, it's interesting. Everybody will pair every word that they think we're using and they'll try to put it in. They cut and paste, throw something against the wall and see if it sticks. I'm not sure how she comes to the conclusion to say that she is Native and African American and Jewish. If you Jewish, just say you half white then, because nobody says they're Muslim, or they don't say they're a Christian. So why do we need to know that she's Jewish? Judaism is just that, is a religion. They have stretched it and turned it to everything else, pretty much like they have called people from Europe native, and we're calling ourselves indigenous because we're from the soil. We're not native because that's what Europeans start calling themselves. They call themselves nativists when they came over here and took over, hostile takeover of the country. But we have to learn to know what we're going to do away with, the same way in the 60s that our elders at that time did away with calling themselves colored, and they adopted the title, we're black. We want black power just like Europeans have white power. They just flipped the script. But since I found out that black means more than just a word or rhetoric that's been flipped, I can own it. And I can own it in varying ways. But I'm still going to come back to being indigenous. None of these people can talk for us. Nola, if she wants to talk for the Jewish people that represent Israel, so be it. But I would recommend that any of you guys who are Hebrew Israelites, or even if you Jewish by your religion that you adopt, and you're not Hebrew Israelite, but you say you are just like Sammy Davis Jr., you are a black Jew. I would like for you and I would like for her to be challenged on, so what is she doing with the Ethiopian Jews in Israel who get treated just like the black people right here in the United States, who get killed like the black people right here in the United States? Those are the conversations that you have to have with white Jews, because that's what she represents. She represents the white Jews out of Europe. She does not represent any of the beta Jews who are, some of them still in Eritrea and in Eritrea, Egypt,
Ethiopia,
and,
Egypt.
Ethiopia. She does not represent any of those, and she does not represent the ones who came in '68, simply because Israel needed numbers. The European concept always liked numbers. That is the reason they're trying to get all of these illegals over here right now, because they need numbers. And they're trying to replace us. And nobody can replace us. And they will not replace us, because we're going to keep pushing back on everything that the United States, both the Republicans and the Democrats, are doing, until they come to the board and come to the table with reparation. They have nothing for us. Not because we're asking, we're demanding. This is not a situation where we're done with asking. So, looking at those different people that he brought forth versus the ones I brought forth, this just give you a premise on how to do your own case studies and how you do a comparative analysis, and then see who is really working for us and who is just getting paid. There have been faces like Clarence Thomas, like the new judge that's on the bench, which the Supreme Court justice in North Alabama, actually wrote two letters to Joe Biden. Joe Biden wrote both of them. And his request was not to put this woman on the Supreme Court. But when white people have an agenda, they're going to do what white people are going to do. Our job is to say no when it does not line up with our agenda. It's lining up with their agenda, so it's serving their purpose. Well, like I said, we don't have to argue with people. We don't have to fight. We don't even have to be nasty because we see a lot of nastiness flowing around not only the country but the world. We don't have to do that. We just have to be factual, and just have to stand on principles and ethics with evidence. That's it. That's all we have to do. And when we do that, we can move forward. And as I said, my hope is as we continue to grow, and I have this lofty goal. When this podcast reach 1,000 people who are listening, I will start podcasting. I think I'm more comfortable now. And I'll let Mr. Chocolate just help me get started. So we can learn how to address spirituality from a spiritual perspective. I'm not interested in helping people whatever Judaism teaches people. I'm not interested in doing that. But yes, we can have a conversation if people want to learn about Judaism. I'm not interested in people trying to be a part of the Islamic community, but we can talk about how Islam has played a part in helping us to be who we are. And I'm not interested in people trying to quote unquote get people saved, as they say in the Christian community. But I can help people to understand each one of these traditions. Well, my goal is to help us to grow in our awareness of our spirituality, because we're in a spiritual warfare. We see it, and it's playing out, and we're dying because for generation our spirit has been damaged, our emotions are shot, and it's time for us to get information so we can go to a higher plane and go deeper. And the only way we can do that is learn our history, learn our roots, so we can actually figure out who we are in this grand scheme of things we call life. And with that, I'm going to land my plane.
All right, all right. Yes, I had fun doing my research and just looking up the information on these young ladies and everything. And some of the stuff was like, man, I really don't like this young lady on a few of those. But yeah, it's very, very insightful information. Take that information and go over it and utilize the information. Even you know, yes.
Well,
Sure.
we have to challenge people because when Kamala Harris was running for president, she didn't know at that point. She said the quiet part out loud. She said no, she was not going to do anything specifically for Black people, but every group in this country have all kinds of laws to protect them. There
Mm-hmm.
is nothing to protect Black people. We have to keep pushing and reminding all of these people who got benefit and protection. But when it comes to us, they don't say anything. I.e., the people who say that they're Jews, they wanted to know why Black people not talking. I think you do. I mean, I think they doing enough talking for everybody. But if you don't know why we're not talking, because nobody's ever talking for us. Nobody's ever going for the bat for us to get reparation. So why do we need to co-sign for anybody? We don't. We don't have to be nasty. We don't have to be afraid. We can let them be afraid all on their own because white supremacy is good at killing. They have mastered that for 5 centuries. In this country, for 2,000 years, on the globe, evidence back it up. So they are masterful at lying, killing, and stealing. That includes your identity, that includes land, that includes people. And we still see that. We see that being carried out now. But as I said, I was going to land my plane and I started it back up. So hope you guys enjoyed getting that information. Um, as the information is on the screen, if you would like to comment and just give us um, some information, food for thought, we would appreciate it. I'm going to turn it back over
Yes.
to Mr. Chocolate.
Yes. If you guys have any comments or questions, please send them to the chat or email at therealchocolatelife@gmail.com. TheRealChocolatelife@gmail.com. All right, everybody, have a good night. Be safe. Enjoy your weekend. Stay vigilant. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. All right, chocolate people. Have a good night. Peace out.